So if you look at the design of our die class, it's almost like a class that represents numeric value. So there's this face value which we can randomly modify, and so we get, but the bottom line that these are numeric values. So therefore would be or should be interesting to allow something like this to happen. Arrays sort, right? Sort and sort are arrays of dice, array of dice, and try to print after they've been sorted. So let's fix the imports. So that brings the arrays from utility package, and I will save this. So we don't know what to expect just yet, but that's the idea. Somehow make possible to create an array of dice which is already in place. It was not that difficult. We just decided how many dice we want and we created an array. And now we can create dice and so forth. And now we want to be able to sort. So so far this looks like something that's possible to do, and I just make sure that I can build this. Okay, so in the clean version of the build, you see that it builds fine, and I will run it now. And unfortunately, what occurs right here is that we have the cast exception, that the die class, the instance of our die class, cannot be cast to Java comparable interface. So we need to fix this. Basically, we need to make our die objects comparable. This is a very standard procedure in Java to make objects comparable, because you can realize that then when you have arrays of objects, you can compare them to be less than, greater than, or equal, and allow algorithms that rely on comparisons to proceed and be happy with instances of our class. So these are the steps that we need to make this die class comparable. Step number 1, we need to say implements comparable. And comparable is an interface in Java programming language, which we will explain later on, the functionality of interfaces. But right now it's like a signal to Java that this die class can be viewed as something comparable. And once it becomes comparable, and by the way, comparable is parameterized, it's a generic interface, so we'll say that internally it should know that we're trying to compare dice. And the second step, so this was the first step, to add comparable interface implementation to our die. And comparable interface comes with another override that we must provide. It's now our obligation to make it a public method that returns an integer. And the name of the method is compareTo. Okay, and once we say compareTo, we will say die another. Okay, so this is an object that we need to compare to. So let me finish implementation of this method, and then I will explain what we're trying to achieve here. So my implementation is going to look like this. If this face value is less than another, face value. Then we will return -1. Otherwise, if this face value is equal another face value, we will return 0, and otherwise we just return +1, which means that basically there's our face value is greater than another face value. So with these two steps, that to make our class implement special interface inside Java language library, which presumes that you provide method names compareTo, our die objects become comparable, and this becomes extremely useful in situations like sort. So if I rerun this program right here, you see that this time there was no complaint, everything looked great, and you see that the bottom line of printouts here generated some face values, but now they're all sorted. And if I rerun it the second time, you see that there are brand new face values generated, and so we're regenerating these random numbers based on our random number generator built into our Java programming language. And so this makes this class die comparable. So these are the steps that you need to be able to compare your objects. So comparison makes a lot of sense if some objects better compared based on their string values, like person names or person phone numbers. You can essentially sort arrays of objects of this type, like person names, by their names or phone numbers and so forth. In case of a die, of course, it just makes sense to sort by comparing the face value. And so these are the two steps to make it possible. You need to implement this interface, and this is of course related to array of objects very directly, because now you can apply algorithms that come with arrays utility class, and sort is a very popular version of this thing. So this is an example of sorting the dice.